So you want to make some progress with Raid Shadow Legends, but not quite sure what to do? Let's see if we can help. Welcome, welcome. My name is Bront CatHerder, and we're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends here. First things first, I am a new content creator, although I have been streaming on Twitch for about a year. The Raid community has been great to me. I have had some struggles over the past year and a half with cancer. I have had some vocal issues to where my left vocal cord does not function properly. I've had a couple surgeries in order to correct that, and my voice is finally coming back now. So, as I said, I've done some streaming on Twitch, doing some text to speech, doing some, and later on just talking when I could. And now that my voice is doing better, I wanted to see if I can get into doing videos. So, this is my absolute first Raid Shadow Legends video. I'll do my best to be entertaining. I'll do my best to be educational. Sometimes I will be neither. We'll see. But you know what? My goal is to make sure that I'm having fun, and my goal is to make sure that you are having fun. Well, let's have some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends. First things with progress, absolutely make sure that you understand that Raid Shadow Legends is not a sprint. It is a marathon. Progress can come very early when you first start at the game, but that's partially by design to get you hooked in, but also because it's very easy to get some of the initial things you need to do. Level up your starter champion, level up a few other champions, get them to level 4 stars, that sort of stuff. But at some point in time, you can get easy to get lost. There's a lot to do in this game. There's a lot to learn in this game, and it's very easy to not keep focus, and it's very easy to get lost in everything that you can do. Let's start in the early game. Early game, you will be spending a lot of time here in the campaign. Now, in the campaign, there's 4 different modes. As an early player, do not worry about Nightmare at all. Nightmare is not until later game. And really, you do Nightmare for the rewards, not for farming of just about anything for quite a long period of time in the game. So you start out on normal, and basically your goal is to progress through the campaign as much as you can with the champions you have, leveling them up, or leveling up other champions that you can eventually use for food as you make your 2 stars into 3 stars for chickens, to your 4 stars, to your 5 stars, and eventually you start getting some 6 stars. Your goal is eventually to get your starter 6-star level 60, so that your starter, in my case Kale right here, can farm 12-3 by himself with 3 pieces of food here that you are leveling up in order to make them into chickens to rank up other champions. Your duration on this may vary. Ideally, you want this to be as 100% as possible. 12-3 is generally the accepted best one to farm. 12-3 is good on experience and good on silver because shields sell for more than the other pieces. That's why 12-3 is good. Specifically, 12-3 for Nightmare is pretty much your best bang for your buck as far as experience you're going to earn for your champions, as well as silver you might earn for selling items. Now, what do you need to get your starter into doing farming 12-3? Well, honestly, the stats are not that huge. Now, I have a fairly endgame account, and I've got some good gear, really good gear on him. So you'll notice I'm actually missing 2 pieces of gear. I don't have my full crit rate. My crit damage is kind of high, but that's a lot of that, to be fair, is my Great Haul, which is pretty good. So I'm just missing some gear. And I ran it with no problem. I could be missing a lot more gear and wouldn't really have a big deal getting through 12-3 with Kale, or eventually some other champions that might be okay to farm for you as well. Obviously, Elhain, Aethel, and Gallic will also be able to do this for you. I just happen to pick Kale. So once you get Kale to 6 stars and be able to farm 12-3 Brutal, which, to be fair, you can do this with the starter lifesteal gear that you get from the very first login champion bonus. Do not throw that stuff away. Put it on your starter champ, or at least put 4 pieces of it on your starter champ. level it up, and he'll be just fine in campaign without an issue. Um, Eventually, though, you want to, go into your accounts and identify 4 other champs that you're going to want to level up. They may be some of them may be rares. You might find a couple of rares that are effective for you. Like Avir is a good starting champion. He's a dwarf. Apo, Apothecary is a common one that people like to use. Um, if you get to day 30 and you're still figuring out some of them, High Katoon is a very good champion that is worth leveling up to at least 50, if not 60, to get your account moving. Useful in lots of areas. And these 5 core champions that you identify are going to be the lifeblood of your account for a little while. You're going to be taking them to dungeons. You're going to be taking them to Dragon. You're going to be taking them to Clan Boss. You're going to be taking them in Arena. And they're going to do everything for you. How do you identify those champs? Well, there's plenty of resources, which I'll certainly get to a little later. Sometimes you just read the kit and see if they're good. Sometimes you build them a little bit and see if they're good. Generally, epics are better than rares. Legendaries are better than epics. Not always. Sometimes it depends on the particular champ and what they're doing for you, and also depends on what you have available to build. Early on, sometimes building some rares and epics is easier than building a legendary because a legendary takes a lot of resources to build. So you might have a really good legendary that you might not build right away just because you can't invest the books because you don't have them. You can't invest the potions to ascend them because you don't have them. And that it can be enough to make an epic that much easier to build. But that's generally your goal of getting in the early game. Work on farming food to level up 5 champions to level 6 stars, or 6 stars level 60. Work on what gear you might have. You'll collect some gear here. You might also occasionally venture into some of the dungeons. You're not going to be pushing into those too hard, but you're kind of working on getting your champs where you need to go. Sell 3-star gear and below. 3-star gear is not worth keeping. Also, and of course, there's just so you're aware, there are some easy ways to do this under the filters. Under rank and rarity, you select 3 and 1 and 2 stars, and you can just select all and sell. The other thing that is useful to note is, I'm not going to get too much into the gear here, but these bottom 3 rows here can have a multitude of different stats on them. You can actually have either a flat HP or HP percent. You generally do not want to be keeping flat HP items. You do not want to be keeping flat attack items. You do not want to be keeping flat defense items. As you'll see, I have very few of them here on my account at the moment. So in general, you can sell those with impunity because outside of very, very early on, when you just might need the piece of gear, flat stats are not as good as these percentage stats are, even on champs that are not fully grown yet. It's by the time you're getting 6-star gear, you're getting 6-star champs, so you need the stats. And then finally, one last just really good starter tip. Boots are the only set that has a main stat of speed. Make sure you keep speed boots, or boots that have speed as the main stat. Speed as the main stat is important. Speed as the main stat is the lifeblood of your account. Speed kills in raid. You want to be as fast as possible early on. In fact, oftentimes speed will triumph a lot of other stats for helping you through dungeons quickly. So you want speed boots on all of your champs to start off. So eventually, you'll get 5 champions you like, or at least 5 champions you can stand for the moment. Built up to 6 stars, ready to go. You'll be running things like Clan Boss. You'll be running some of your dungeons. Where do you go from there? Well, one of the things you need to do is you need to make sure that you farm scrolls. Scrolls are aka masteries. Put those 2 out. These are one of the easiest and best ways to improve the power of your champions. This scales all the way from the start game to the end game. Masteries can be responsible for as much as 30% to 50% additional damage, can add to your hit points so you're not dying as easily, can add to your accuracy so you can land stuff better. Masteries are worth farming, and I highly recommend that you have masteries on your champs. On pretty much any champ you decide you're going to 6-star, because they're worth it. So you see here, I made the Minotaur run. Obviously, I'm an endgame account. It's going to be faster than it might be on an earlier account. I just got 14 of the green scrolls on Basher. Eventually, I'm going to want all the red scrolls as well. Now, the cheat for this, I hate saying it's a cheat, but what I would recommend early on, let's just up here we go. We go into masteries here. Early on for your first 2 champions, if you do this get all scrolls, they'll buy all your scrolls for 800 gems. For your first and or second champ you're getting masteries on, this is an easy way to do. Because I said this will increase the power of your champion by quite a bit. This is worth investing 800 gems in. Later on, I recommend just farming them because you'll save about 300 gems, give or take, per champion you farm in Minnow. But it's ultimately up to you where you want to spend your time, where you want to spend your resources. But as you're moving into the mid-game, you're obviously beginning to build more and more 6-star champs. Your goals here are to move on towards the dungeons and start focusing a little bit more on dungeons. Dungeons you looking to get into... No, not that one. Ignore the Sand Devils. That's not a good one for starting. You are looking to get into the normal dungeons and get to stage 20. Now, it doesn't matter necessarily how long this takes, although you obviously want a faster time. But if this takes you 5 minutes, but you can beat stage 20 at 100%, that's fine. You can farm stage 20. Getting to stage 20 is important because stage 20 is where you start getting only 5 and 6-star gear. And the goal of your account at this point in time, as you're progressing into the mid-game, is to stop relying on 4-star gear. So when you start only farming 5 and 6-star gear, particularly at least in Dragon and in Spider, you can start selling all your 4-star gear. And even start working on selling your 5-star rare gear, because 5-star rare gear is significantly impaired compared to 5-star epic, 5-star legendary, or 6-star gear in general. And that's kind of your big goal for progress here. Now, what champs might you want to work on? Well, you want to work on champs that are going to help you in lots of places, but they might be champs that will, there can be specialists. So you may have a champ that only might help you in Dragon, but if they're going to help you significantly in Dragon, that's still worth it. If you have a champion that you're trying to get to Fire Knight 20 and you can't get to Fire Knight 20 without this particular champ and you think they can make a difference, that's a champ worth building. Struggling in Arena a little bit, because this is when you're kind of focusing on Arena a little bit too, and you shouldn't be forgetting about Arena. Well, build an Arena champ. They may actually not be used in your other content for the most part. But the other thing you are working on at this time is Faction Wars. You want to work towards getting Lydia. Lydia is definitely worth it. She is a great champion. So you would work on Faction Wars and work on building teams for Faction Wars. So anybody you build full out for 6 stars in Faction Wars will help your Faction Wars teams. Now, they may not be the best of the best, but if you've built a champion 6-star 60 for Arena, chances are they're going to be better than a 3-star or 4-star rare in your account that you haven't put much gear on because you've invested in them. So it's worth investing in these champs. It's worth progressing in Faction Wars. Even now, if there's champions you're not sure you want to upgrade, but you're working on filling out your Faction Wars roster, you can certainly take some of these 3 stars that you might have, take them, maybe even build them up to 4 stars if they're helpful for you, throw some gear on them, and they'll help you. You can progress. So you make some progress in Faction Wars. You start slowly but surely ticking these off and making progress towards Lydia. It's a good way to move on to the next part of the game. Which champions should you build? Again, we'll talk about resources later. So as you hit Dungeons 20 and beyond, as you start hitting Arena and beyond, and not to forget, Clan Boss here is Clan Boss is the best place for books and best place for shards. You want to start working on a team that eventually can get within 2 keys, get this Transcendent chest from Ultra Nightmare. But a stepping stone is to get to a team that can, with 2 keys, hit the ultimate chest here on Nightmare. Then you can use 1 key on Brutal and get the top chest there. And if you want to use a fourth key, you can always hit hard. Or if you're hitting Ultra Nightmare for 2 keys, 1 key for Nightmare, 1 key in Brutal if you want. That will get you lots of shards, and it will make a huge difference in progressing your account, as well as books, which are also important in progressing your account. So ideally, as you move on towards that, Faction Words gets done, and you've got your Lydia. You're probably farming dungeons between 20 and 25 now, pretty regularly. Ideally, you've moved on towards 25. Honestly, you've probably spent a little bit of time in Doom Tower. Doom Tower Normal is not too difficult, and you can generally work on Doom Tower Normal while working on other content. Now that you get Lydia, that's when you can kind of buckle down and focus on Doom Tower Hard. Doom Tower Hard will require more specific builds, more specific champs, higher stats. And now that you're no longer working on Faction Wars, you can kind of focus a little bit more in on hitting this harder content. Hydra is another piece of content you can kind of focus on at this point in time. Hydra can get you Mithrala, this champion here. Can get you some really good protection and stone skin gear, which is very good in lots of places in the game. Can get you mythic gear, which is probably some of the first time you're going to be hitting mythic gear, other than the hard dungeons. So it's well worth hitting. Plus, it's also good for souls. So working in Hydra is now a good time to start for that. Focusing on Arena and 3v3, now is a good time to start for that. Faction Wars can go by the wayside just a little bit. You want to be able to still farm at least dungeon level 18, if not, or Faction Wars level 18 usually. But as long as you're farming at least 18, you should be getting some pretty good glyphs. You should be getting the gear to be able to craft perception and resilience gear. And overall, you can start focusing on the champions that are going to carry you towards faster dungeon runs, towards higher dungeon runs as you work on things, towards running, getting the rewards on Doom Tower Hard, maybe even towards some of these secret rooms that often have very specific teams you need to build for them. And that's kind of where you move into in the end game, or in the late game, I should say. Around this time, you're going to start, as you are in the mid game, as you're collecting gear, you start worrying a little bit more about the sets, because set bonuses become more and more important as the stats cease to be less of an issue. Once you can start getting the stats you want, then you start worrying about the set bonuses as well, either because they give you more stats or they give you bonuses that are worth getting other than the stats. So you kind of work on that. As you're working into the late and end game, you're going to stop keeping 5-star gear. It's usually pretty easy early on to stop keeping 5-star accessories because you run so much spider, or at least hopefully you're running so much spider, that you just have enough accessories that you don't need to keep the 5 stars anymore. Other gear will certainly depend a little bit on what you've been farming and where your count is. But because you no longer need the multitude of champs that you needed for Faction Wars, you can stop keeping most of the bad 5-star gear, or even the 5-star gear that's okay. Just keep the best of the best, and start only keeping new 6-star gear to try to push your account up a little bit. What champions are you going to focus on here? Well, it really depends on what you're going to pull. Obviously, you've got champions like Lydia and Mithrala that are certainly worth building, are very good champions for all kinds of areas in the game, and you get them towards this area of the game. But there's plenty of other champions you'll pull, and each account is going to be different. So, what about endgame? Well, endgame's going to be endgame. Um, that's where you talk about maybe hitting platinum arena or sticking around in high gold tag arena, or maybe you decide you want to do something like more focus on speed runs and faction wars, or maybe you like speed running dungeons, or maybe you're the type of person that likes building different clan boss teams. Once you kind of get into the end game, one of the fun things you can do is you've gotten an account that is sprawling enough and diverse enough that you can start picking and choosing what you want to do and just doing it. You know, for a while I had 2 or 3 different clan boss teams, not for any particular reason other than I just wanted to build a few of them. I work on speed running my faction wars quite a bit and have a couple champs built specifically to help me speed through faction wars. I've done some work on pushing platinum. Never successful yet, but I've done some work on pushing platinum. I've gotten involved in 3v3. I'm in gold 4. Um, I've gotten through a lot of the hard dungeons, and it's the stuff I enjoy. Um, and that's really the big ultimate part about all this stuff. There's plenty of ways to push your account forward. There's plenty of things you can focus on being better at the game. But at the end of all, this is a game. And the idea is that you're supposed to be having fun and finding ways to enjoy yourself. So sometimes that's just simply knowing where you can progress and working towards it. Early on, you're constantly beating new stages, you're constantly leveling things up, you're probably constantly pushing a new thing here, a new thing there. Later on in the game, you might start working and saying, hey, my Fire Knight 25 team is running at 4.5 minutes. Let's see if I can shave that down to 3. Or something similar to that. Or maybe it becomes, let's see if I can push arena. There's all kinds of different things you can do, and that's what makes this game fun. Now, what can you use to do that? Well, there's all kinds of fun sites you've got out there. Hellhades.com is one of the more prominent ones. Ayumi Love is another one that is out there. They're both very good sites. And then Aftershock United has a raid page. It used to be raidshadowpro.gg, and that'll still take you to the raid page. Those 3 are pretty good amalgamations of things. You can look at champs, you can see ratings and tier lists, you can find out information about building the champs. But there's more you can do than that. There's plenty of YouTubers out there. Obviously, myself is now a new one. But plenty of CCs out there that have videos that they put out regularly. There's Twitch and other streaming sites where you can watch live streamers, and many of the live streamers you can interact with. I know I run Twitch. I do Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Tuesday, Thursday evening in US time, and then Saturday late morning, early afternoon US time. And I do a lot of account help. I do a lot of takeovers. I do a lot of teaching. But on top of that, the Twitch community is great. You can ask people. The raid Discord is really nice. You can usually find some people to help you there. If you find a Twitch streamer, sometimes the Twitch streamers themselves will help you, and if not, there's often somebody in chat that can certainly help you if you have questions about the game. There is an awful lot going on in raid. It's a great community. It's one of the reasons I like it here. It has been a great community for me, and I hope to continue supporting it. So, anyway, I realize this is probably a long video, probably spliced together a little bit when I paused to rethink whether or not this needed to be a long video. But you know what? I'm a new content creator, and I'm going to stick with it, whether or not it embarrasses me. But I hope, hopefully you've had some fun. Hopefully you've had a laugh or two when you can. Maybe at my expense. That's fine. Hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully you've learned a few ways that you can look to progress your account, or things that you can certainly look to measure where you're at. If you like this, if you like me, if you like the channel, there's a subscribe button down below. You can certainly subscribe and stick around and get notifications for any new videos I start to put up. I will be putting some more up soon. Definitely appreciate likes on the video as well. More I can grow this channel, the more I can continue to do this sort of stuff. And hopefully it meant something to you, because I definitely appreciate you sticking around until now. What am I going to do in the future as far as videos are concerned? Well, hopefully not too many super long videos, but I want to do a breakdown of gear because I will do gear cleanses on stream and I will talk about gear quite a bit. And that's one of the things I get a lot of questions about. I get questions, Bront, how do I sell this gear? Bront, I need a gear cleanse. Bront, like usually just people want to do a gear cleanse. But people ask me, how do I refine my gear? How do I sell my gear? What do I do with my gear? Well, I want to do a little bit of a breakdown to get you into what I think about with gear, both on a end game level, but honestly more on a general level, because if you understand your gear, you can understand early to late game what gear you kind of need to keep and when you can throw some things away and when you can't. I want to do some breakdowns on some of the various dungeons. Maybe basic, it might be something that other content creators have done, but I always like to give my little bit of a spin on it. And finally, I might even get into some of the faction war stuff. There's a few things I wanted to get into. Plus, I ultimately hope to be making more and other videos that maybe you guys are interested in. See a champion on my account that you'd like to find out how I use them, or find out ways to use them in general, let me know. Some of the champions I don't use anymore because they were earlier game for me. Some of the champions I still use because I like using them, and some of them are used because honestly they're just super powerful. Anyway, definitely appreciate it. Thanks again for sticking around for all the video. Much love, everyone. Take care.